This video will show you how to replace your front CV axle assembly on this Toyota Corolla. This will be located behind your front wheel. A quick note about replacing the axle, you may lose some transmission fluid. Make sure you have some Toyota FE CVT fluid handy. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the front of the vehicle so the front wheel's off the ground. After you've done that, we're going to remove all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts and then the wheel. Now that we have the wheel off, we're going to be focusing on the axle nut. The reason why we're focusing on the axle nut first is because it's going to make it easiest to be able to gain access to the ball joint mounting nut. I'm using a 30mm 12-point socket for my axle nut. Now we're going to break this free. I'm using a hammer and punch directly in the center of the axle. Let's get some movement. Once you do see movement from here, we can continue on. Now we're making our way underneath the lower control arm. We're looking for where the ball joint connects to the control arm. In this area, you're going to find 3 pieces of 17mm hardware. We have a bolt and 2 nuts. Start with the bolt. Onto each of the 2 nuts. At this point, you should be able to pull down on the control arm. We want to pull it down far enough that we can remove the ball joint studs. Now we should be able to start pulling this out and away. We're pulling the axle shaft out of the backside of the wheel bearing. Now we're following the axle inboard towards the transmission. I'm underneath the vehicle with a collection receptacle, directly underneath the contact point here. As we start sliding the axle out, it's possible fluid will make its way out as well. Now for this, I'm using a pry bar. You're going to find around the axle, there's some ridges. I'm pressing up against it, and now I'm going to lightly tap with my hammer, driving this out and away. We can flex this and remove the axle. There it is, friend. Let's make sure we clean our axle seal on the transmission here. Make sure it's soft and pliable. Now it's time to install our left front axle. To do this, we're going to have to shift the knuckle out of the way so we can start sliding the axle into the transmission. Be extremely careful for your seal. Should be able to flex that plastic plate if necessary. Line it up, start pressing it in. Now commonly, when you go to press this in, it's only going to go in so far. You have to continue on with a rubber mallet at the far end. Give it a couple taps, drive it in until it's flush. You may have to press this out and away and hold it with a ratchet strap. Once you do feel as though it is in place, reach all the way in towards the inside at the transmission. Take hold of the axle and attempt to pull it out. It should not slide out of place. That looks good. Now over towards the wheel bearing area, we're going to clean this port. Just give it a quick wipe, close inspection. We'll apply some anti-seize. As far as the anti-seize, we really just need to get all the way inside that port there. Let's take hold of the caliper area here. We're going to start pulling this away so we can bring the axle into position along the back side of the bearing. Should be able to twist the bearing as necessary. We'll get the splines aligned. It can only go so far. Now we need to also align the lower ball joint with the control arm before we go too much further here. Just going to pivot that ball joint. Bring this down, slide it into place. Be careful for any pinch points. Start installing our hardware here. Let's get that one onto my socket. For this mounting hardware, as we start snugging, we're going to be using an 18mm for our 2 mounting nuts and a 15mm for the bolt. The torque for all of these will be 66 foot-pounds. There's one. Now it's time for the axle nut. Of course, we're going to start it on by hand. We'll bottom this out. The torque for this is going to be 156 foot-pounds. When you go to torque this, you may find that this spins on you. Now, if that's the case, you could have a second person pressing on the brake while you go ahead and torque this. Otherwise, if you don't have a second person, you could use a pry bar diagonally down towards the ground, preventing this from turning. For now, I'm going to snug this up. For this, we're not using an impact tool. It's time to torque the axle nut. I have my bar going across my lug studs down towards the ground, preventing this from spinning on me. We'll be torquing this to 156 foot-pounds. Now, if you were looking at the axle shaft itself, you're going to find that it has a slot making its way all the way in. We want to try to drive that nut into the slot, so I'm just using a hammer and punch. We'll give this a couple taps. You can go as far as you feel necessary. Essentially, we just want to make sure the nut does not loosen while we're driving down the road. Now at this point, before we put our wheel back on, you're going to want to follow the manufacturer's procedure for filling the transmission fluid. Let's get our wheel in place. Now at this point, we're going to start on all 5 of our 21mm lug nuts. We'll bottom them out, get the wheel safely on the ground, and we can torque these to 76 foot-pounds. With the wheel back on the ground, let's torque each one of our 21mm lug nuts to 76 foot-pounds. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished our installation. At this point, you want to make sure you've cleaned any mess, double-checked for leaks, and then you're going to take your vehicle for a road test. We want to ensure it shifts as it should and get yourself a 4-wheel alignment. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.